can water be mixed with oil? Does salt lose its identity when dissolved in a liquid substrate? Could the natural phenomena of the Rio Negro and Rio Solimões in Brazil, flowing for miles side by side to later be unified in the one Amazon River, serve as a paradigm for dual belonging or inculturation? Or the answer to the quest for the Holy Grail and how to attain union with the divine in response to the eternal questions of, who am I and where am I going? The Tao Te Ching says, the Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The nameless is the origin of heaven and earth. The named is the mother of myriad things. In the Christian scriptures we find, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things came into being. Not one thing came into being except through him. In response to the perennial questions and the need to respond to the predominantly Taoist, Confucianist, and Buddhist populations of Asia, in 1971, the Federation of Asian Bishops' Conference was established by the Vatican. The conference set out to find new ways of evangelization, with a trifold focus on the inculturation of Catholic life, interfaith dialogue with major Asian religions, and serving the poor. It was like a new Pentecost in Asia. As author Thomas C. Fox capsulized, how would Catholicism appear to the world and to other religions if simply living out the Gospels became its primary mode of evangelization? Riding the tide, in the 1974 meeting of Asian religious women, 3 masters, teachers, prophets, and gurus in Oriental spirituality were invited to share on Asian spirituality. They were the Irish Jesuit priest, Father William Johnston, the Japanese Dominican priest, Father Vincenzo Shigeto Oshida, and the Indian Society of the Sacred Heart Religious, Sister Vandana Mutaji. Sister Agnes Lee Chunzhen and her provincial superior, Sister Corona Jung, of the Franciscan Missionary Sisters of the Immaculate Conception of the Mother of God, also known as the Sheng Kung Sisters, were in attendance.
It's a matter of transformation of consciousness. For instance, like Nicodemus in John 3, he went to Jesus, then they talk, but they didn't meet. They didn't meet because they have 2 different levels of consciousness. Father Oshida went to India to look for a guru in the 60s. The guru asked him, where are you from? Tokyo. Where are you from? Tokyo. Where are you from? Tokyo. No meeting. No meeting. But prayer is to elevate our consciousness. Though we are here in this form world, but still we are able to go into a formless world. Then after we have formless world, experience of formless, then we come back, we know how to deal with forms. That's spirituality and prayer for. Yeah.
In 1976, the Sheng Kung Sisters of Taiwan responded to the request of the Asian Bishops' Conference to work in inculturation as a means of building a Chinese church. As the first Jews broke bread with Jesus before becoming known as Christians, and as Paul stood up for the Gentiles, saying they did not need to become Jews before following Christ, the Desert Fathers also went off into the sparse landscape to find ways of emptying themselves of themselves in order to be filled with God. Their practices included asceticism and fasting, prayer and repetitious prayer, contemplation, and manual labor. For the Sheng Kung Sisters, they adapted Eastern forms of practice that led to spiritual cultivation. Cultivation meaning to know oneself and to know the root of life through shoshin, the purifying of the heart through attention to the experience of death of self, the abandonment of ego, in order to attain self-realization. Some sisters went to take courses on Chinese philosophy at the National Cheng Kung University. Others went for short stays in Buddhist temples to learn from the Buddhist way of religious life. A few of them went to Japan to advance their learning of Zen contemplation and the realization on and union with God, with Father Shigeto Oshida, and with the Jesuit priest, Father Hugo Inomiya LaSalle. As Father LaSalle said, "The encounter with God, the experience of the Absolute, is a principle at work in ourselves. This awakening to the brightness of the inner light is a necessary step in the full spiritual development of the person, of every person. A step in which the transcendental sense awakens, the inner eye opens, and reality is finally encountered." In 1978, a group of 7 Sheng Kung sisters were accepted to stay at Guyan Buddhist temple in Zhanghua in central Taiwan under the hospitality of Zen master Bai Yun. The aim of the living experience was to experience religious life in the Buddhist tradition as practiced by the young monks and nuns, and to learn more about the indigenization of Buddhism, picking up Chinese elements, becoming Mahayana Buddhism, and how Mahayana Buddhism in China after encountering Taoism developed into Zen Buddhism. This venture led to further interaction between the Buddhist and Catholic nuns. In collaboration with distinguished theologian, Jesuit priest Father Aloysius Chang, Junshen, Sister Agnes began offering workshops on Christian Zen contemplation to acquire the method of Zen contemplation, sitting, put into daily practice. This was the first step of practicing Eastern spiritual formation. With Father Zhang's publication of Zhongguo Lingxiu Qu-Yi, a preliminary discussion on Chinese spirituality, he was able to mobilize Christian theology to assure the legitimacy of the Eastern way of spiritual cultivation. The sisters developed a Buddhist-style prayer hall on the top floor of their chapel of their provincial house. It was called Pure Heart Spiritual Center. The center was opened to the public for engaging in spiritual exercises with Zen contemplation.
We want to establish this center and want to promote as much as possible activities to help our Taiwan people's, many of the Taiwan people's needs. So this is the reason. But now I want to use the Buddhist chanting. Even we adopted their melody, but we just put the Catholic words. So now I try to chanting. That means we are doing, this way. Buddhist, so to put, Amitofu 4 words, and we just put Jesus Christ. 耶稣基督，耶稣基督，耶稣基督，耶稣基督，耶稣基督，耶稣基督，耶稣基督，耶稣基督。阿弥陀佛，阿弥陀佛。阿弥陀佛，阿弥陀佛，阿弥陀佛，阿弥陀佛，阿弥陀佛，阿
Between 1982 and 1990, the Association of the Major Superiors of Religious Women in Taiwan held 2 workshops on Eastern spirituality, affirming the interest in and the eagerness to promote Eastern spirituality with its own reservoir of deep wisdom and knowledge. Some church leaders, however, were skeptical of the work of the Sheng Kung Sisters, questioning whether they had crossed the lines of dual or multi-religious belonging. The sisters' worries were clarified, however, by the pioneers of inculturation in Oriental spirituality, Father Oshida and Sister Vandana, who confirmed that the means the Sheng Kung Sisters were employing to search for the ultimate was correctly pursued. Sister Vandana affirmed, "Cultivation of self, the nurturing of the heart, is the most essential part of the spirituality of the Eastern tradition. This is the spirituality of emptying the heart in order to enter into union with the Absolute." In 1988, Sister Agnes Lee joined Jesuit priest Father Thomas Hand in presenting at the Human Path Conference at Mercy Center in Burlingame, California. Sister Agnes had met Father Hand at Father Oshida's hermitage in 1981. Father Hand had spent 29 years in Japan and 6 years in Zen training. The Sisters in Mercy in Burlingame were very open in ministering to the multicultural and multi-faith Bay Area Christians, thirsting to deepen their spirituality. Conferences like the Human Path, daily Zen contemplative sitting, and regular spiritual practice in the Catholic Retreat Center served to fill the gap. With the sisters' support, one room of the center was renovated into the current Rose Room, used for sitting meditation. In 1990, Father Thomas Hand and Sister Agnes Lee published the co-authored book, A Taste of Water, Christianity Through Taoist Buddhist Eyes. In addition to giving retreats to priests, seminarians, and nuns in Germany at the Society of Divine Word China Center, Sister Agnes with Father Hand in 1993 spent a month in the Flanders, invited by the Ferdinand Verbius Foundation in Louvain to give a series of conferences and retreats. After launching Oriental spirituality for nearly 20 years, when the religious dialogue between Oriental and Western traditions had prevailed, and the difference between East and Western tradition in religion had been shortened, the pursuit of spirituality by believers beyond the Catholic religion had grown, as well as finding other ways of modern expression and cultivation practice. Sister Agnes Lee changed the name of Oriental spirituality then into contemplative spirituality. With the cooperation of a Presbyterian pastor, Reverend Cheng J.Yu, the Pure Heart Spiritual Center continues to offer training and practice of Zen contemplation for laity and religious, both on short and long-term basis. Creating a Christian Eastern spirituality will not reap immediate fruit, but the groundwork has been laid where through Zen contemplation one can enter into the emptiness, which is a way to attain union with the ultimate. This conforms with Christian teaching because God is life, the ultimate. God is love. Although the enculturation of the Catholic Church has been launched for years, it takes time for a new paradigm shift to happen. After 40 years, the Sheng Kung Sisters are still 40 years ahead of conventional time.